Where all the cords are to unplug everything. Anyway, I think we're in business.
We all set, Penny?
Yep.
So I'll call the meeting to order. It is approximately 6:13 and determine a quorum. I can see by representation that we have a majority of the board present, so we have a quorum. Public hearings, I believe we do not have any scheduled. Is that right,
Correct.
City Manager?
Yep.
And so I'd move to item 3, which is approval of minutes from June 8. And they were distributed via email attachment if you had a chance. Otherwise, they're in front of you as a hard copy.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. And we'll start on my right. Justin?
Aye.
And I'll vote yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
James? David?
Yes.
And Eric?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. So it brings us to item 4, which is City Council Liaison Update. And
Thank
the
you, Mr.
representative is
Chairman.
here and present and
Yes,
anxious to
it's good
update.
good to see you all. I really haven't a lot to report. If you follow some of the council meetings, you know that we've been spending a lot of time with dangerous buildings and trying to fight blight here in town. And it's a huge challenge. We can do everything possible to declare things dangerous buildings, and then we end up doing it over and over again, it seems like. I don't understand the process, but we have to, multiple times, we have to declare something dangerous. And then finally it gets to court, and we have one in court now, right? Finally?
Yep.
And the first thing that the court did was to impose an eight-month discovery period, which means we sit around and wait for 8 months for something to happen. Anyway, but I just wanted to share that with you. That's a focus of the council. We are very actively involved in stepping through the list of blighted buildings and trying to get them on that path, on the dangerous building path. But I'm beginning to wonder whether that's really the right path anymore, because it just takes so long, and everyone's frustrated. We've also been spending a lot of time with our municipal budget. I don't know if you've been following that, but we've had a valuation adjustment this year, and prices have gone up for everything. And so that has caused a kind of a perfect storm where a lot of people's taxes are going to go up. And so we're wrestling with issues there and trying to ease the pain as much as we can, but spending a lot of attention on our budget. So that's about all I had. It's been pretty slow the last couple of months. Do you have any questions for me?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Dangerous buildings. I know the state has its own set of rules and guidelines, and I perused some of the information that Penny distributed. Does home rule supersede the state laws, and can we rewrite our ordinance so that we can put some teeth into it? An example, my house burns. I didn't have any insurance, so I'm on the hook. I would almost be very tempted to say, the heck with it. Let the city clean it up and then put my land up for bid to recover
Mm-hmm.
my cost, and I'll go camp out in your backyard.
Well, I think the best way I can answer that is that I doubt it. the trend seems to be the state taking more and more home rule away. And you're going to hear more about that on the agenda today with the new density requirements for attainable housing or whatever. I doubt it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Is the state gonna fight us?
Oh, probably.
Penny, what do you think?
I could pose the question to MMA, see what they say, and then just forward their response to the planning board.
Because I mean, what you just said, 8 months for a discovery.
It gets worse.
Hmm.
You know, then they get them an attorney that they're not paying for, but we're paying our attorney to fight everything. And, yeah. I just met with Rick 2 weeks ago, I think. Maybe it's been 3 weeks now, but.
Typically, what's a amount of time in dealing with something?
Well, it really hasn't, we haven't had a,
Typical.
everything has
It's-
been different.
Sure.
And it's different too if it's not occupied. The problem with this one that we're in the court system right now is that we have a property that's occupied.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the nature of why it's taking so long. Is because it's occupied. It's a lot easier to deal with when there's nobody there.
Mhm.
Well, let's focus on the vacated buildings. At least we can, there's several of them around town that we could get
Move-
cleaned up.
Move forward on.
Yeah. I'd like to challenge the state.
I think you're gonna find that I'm gonna take off my state hat for a minute. I think you're gonna find you're gonna get beat pretty quick.
Really?
Yeah. Go look at apartment, house rules. The tenant always wins. And it's not dissimilar for blighted properties in general for the state of Maine, the way they look at things.
Because you're depriving them of their property
Right.
and the use of their property.
It's very difficult.
But take the case of my burnt-out house that I just used. That's going to allow the rat population
That's
to
right.
grow. My neighbors are going to start doing unkind things to me. It's going to get progressively worse. So why can't we look out for the neighbors that are having a rat problem because of my stupidity? Or my lack of common sense.
There's only so many tools in the toolbox, and so many of them are not effective, and they take so much time. I can't even count how many notices of violation have stacked up against some of these properties, and it's laughable. I mean, there's no teeth in anything that we are able to do, right? So, I mean, there must be in 10 or more of these notices of violations. They get stacked up before we can even proceed to the next step. So I think we need something innovative, something different. I think I see where you're going with that, and I think if we can be creative about some things, maybe we could come up with something. But
And largely, if you go through an eviction process where you have an unsafe building or whatever, it more or less, and it's not really the way it should work, but more or less, if you condemn a building, you're pretty much on the hook for putting them up somewhere. De facto. It's not supposed to work that way, but you better have a plan in place.
Thank you, Portland.
if you're listening.
Well, it would be nice to have a little more.
I agree. It's very difficult to do that.
Do we get represented by MMA if we challenge the state?
Probably not.
Would you ask that too?
Yep.
mean, like Dan said, it's ridiculous. It's insanity. So let's try something. We all kind of concur?
It would be nice to hear at least what the response is.
Yeah,
I mean, I have some other things to talk about
Okay.
with that later. But.
I'll be quiet.
No, I'm just saying, like, before you take a vote on something, let's just talk about what else is in there. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Other questions for Dan? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to new business blight issues. Not much of a move. Blight issues including
Right.
structures with fires.
Right, so this was something that has been discussed, and members of the board have asked me for, what kind of tools do we have to fight this blight, and particularly structures that have had fires. So our three major tools are our local ordinances, Chapter 4, Chapter 13, our state statutes, and the International Code Council's International Property Maintenance Code. So in Chapter 4 of our local ordinance, that's where it's adopted. You don't have a copy of that in here, but that's where the codes are adopted officially for property maintenance code and the building code. They're actually not adopted in 13, which is 13 is more land use. But Chapter 13 talks about certain actions that the code enforcement officer would take, if they felt that it was necessary because of notices of violation. So you have in your packet, among other wonderful things, we've talked about tonight about dangerous buildings. So this is the actual statute for dangerous buildings, and MMA changed their website, and they had previously a lot bigger packet on dangerous buildings. I'm not sure where it went. I have pieces of it on my computer because I've had to use it many times, but this kind of talks about, like Councilor Bagley has said, it seems like we have to declare it dangerous so many times because we have to give so much notice to people, that, okay, well, the council is going to hear this and we're going to go forward with it. We've heard testimony, we feel this is a dangerous building, we're going to take it to a public hearing. Okay, now we have adjudged it a dangerous building. Well, now we have to give the owner time to come in and tell us why they're going to fix the problem or why this has become a problem. And it is a very long process and sometimes can bring up a lot of emotion in the council meeting when you have people talking about activities that may be going on in a dangerous building. So this is from the state statute with dangerous buildings. I know one of the things that, and this is, you brought up rats. Rats is, something that we also are getting a lot of calls about, and a lot of that is all in the property maintenance code. Now, this isn't the whole property maintenance code, but I just wanted to show, and what we adopt is just the code, but I have for myself on my own bookshelf a copy of the code and commentary, because I find, especially with codes, it's kind of nice to have more background than just the code. It tells you a little bit more about just kind of some of the background and different. Anyway, this is from my personal copy that resides on my bookshelf, which is more than just the code. It's also the commentary. So it talks about unsafe structures and equipment, structures that are not fit for human occupancy. If you see a word that is in italics, it's listed in the definitions. And I do have, just so you see kind of what the definition section looks like, because one of the things, with definitions is the definition of approved just means that it's acceptable to the code official. So you can see how there's a lot of cause in just kind of a blanket statement there if you're saying, I am the code official and I don't approve this because this is not acceptable to me, that someone is going to say, well, what are you basing that on, that this isn't acceptable to you? And we go back to, again, things in the statute, things in our local ordinance. There's a lot in the property maintenance code about, and it even lists under dangerous structure any portion of a building that has been damaged by fire. I mean, that's something that we can quote from our property maintenance code that says, look, your building has been damaged by fire. As the code official, I am telling you that I'm going, before I can approve that you can use this building, I am requiring you to get an engineer to look at this property. Because we don't want people in unsafe structures. And so that is given as a reason that a property might be dangerous. I also highlighted in here about placarding, because if someone is not responsive to notices of violation that we're sending them, we can post the property, and you can see in here that they're not allowed to remove the placard once we put it on there. That it needs to stay there to warn people that this is a dangerous building. But we have people that take them off because they just don't, their idea of, something that the code enforcement officer, by authority of their office, has deemed to be unacceptable, they don't really care. And that's why it's frustrating. That's why I'm still sitting here, and people don't want to be a code officer because, it's a very thankless job. And there are provisions in the code for emergency measures, like you're talking about, if something happened and that we would need to go in and do something, even to demo something. I also put in there a little bit about rodents, because again, that's something that people are talking a lot about right now. Rubbish and garbage, that's something like right now that people are talking about too. So what happens when someone is violating the property maintenance code is we send them a notice of violation. And there is, within the code, you have to give them, first of all, you have to give them like a verbal warning, and go to them and say, hey, your place is burned down and you need to fix it. And then we have to follow it up with like written notices, and there's a whole process for that. But in the end, all we're doing is appealing to their better nature to be a good neighbor. And some people, like to use your example of, my building burned and I don't want to clean it up. Some people, that you can't appeal to that because that better nature just isn't there or something, and they're not going to do it, or they don't feel responsible. One of the issues that we ran into on a dangerous building is that the owner had gone through bankruptcy, felt that they were no longer responsible for their house because they had gone through bankruptcy, but they still owned the house, like it hadn't been foreclosed. And actually what happened was when the mortgage company got wind that we were going through a dangerous building action, they discharged the mortgage. So now this lady owns the house free and clear, but it's a dangerous building. So
Can't win.
you can't. I mean, especially when you have, when people just don't want to comply and, think you're foolish for doing it, for trying to make them comply with these things. And then it becomes, how long are we going to fight this? Sometimes you can wear them down, with continually sending them notices and
But you're talking
and
years,
calling.
you're not
But
talking.
no, you're talking,
No,
you're
right.
talking sometimes it's years. Because what happens is you almost have to start this as soon as the snow is melted. And then you have to start your push. Because what happens is people will say, oh, well, it's winter. Oh, well, it's pollen season. It's mud season. It's my kid's birthday. Like, what, they have like so many excuses why this is not the time. And then they've given you all of this, these excuses, and then it's winter again. And that's the problem here, is we have a short season for people to address these property maintenance issues.
Okay, why, a question.
Mhm.
You said wait till spring.
Mhm.
If I had my fire in January,
Mhm.
okay? I know if you have insurance, you have
Mhm.
debris removal.
Mhm.
If you don't have it, and we put some teeth in our ordinance,
Mhm.
we give them 30 days,
Mhm.
okay? If they don't respond to us within 30 days, then we have the right to act and demo the building.
Mhm.
in
I
which
mean,
case-
under dangerous buildings, you could do it anyway. If the council adjudged that was an imminent danger, like there's, definitions of what is imminent danger. If they feel it's imminent danger, you could go in anytime, and say, I mean, you would have to go to them and say, you need to clean this up, but if they don't, I mean,
So the,
you could do that.
so
But
why
it-
aren't we doing it?
For one thing, it takes people to do this.
Costs a lot of money.
It takes money to do this, but even if you sent in, Public Works and some trucks, like, you have to have a staff member who has the time resources to do these things. And for us right now,
You're
we're very short-staffed. And I know that that's no excuse, and I have to hear that from people every day. They don't care that we're short-staffed. This is your job, just do your job. And I'm thinking, okay, but at some point I do have to sleep and shower, I can't, I am not a machine. I have to sleep at some point. But people don't understand that, they don't care, it's just, and particularly when you have things that there's a lot of legal components to it, like you want that person's head to be totally into that process so that they're not thinking about, a lot of other things. They're only thinking about, okay, are we following everything by the book? Because the last thing you want is to go in and you haven't completely done your process, and then we have violated someone's civil rights, deprived them of their property, and then somehow we're in some kind of hot water for that. I mean, find me someone who, wants to be a code officer and wants to spend their time tracking these things down. And, the job of code enforcement officer this past time for the 5 years, that person was not, they were not certified in building code. They did not do building inspections. Like, it was just land use things. And if you have someone who's just doing land use things, in theory, they would have time to be able to devote the time needed to do these kinds of projects if they're not also issuing building permits, doing building inspections, coordinating with the plumbing inspector, all of those things. That position worked with the planning board and did land use. And that was it. There wasn't any of the other things that you would normally think of with code enforcement. And if you're going to do big things like that, you need to have someone who has the time and also is interested in doing that. A lot of people are not interested in doing things that's going to make people mad at them. It takes a special personality that will go and say, hey, tear down your stuff and clean up your yard, cut your grass. I mean, that's something that we're hearing a lot about, is the grass thing, because back to the rodents. I mean, that's where they like to hang out, I guess, is in long grass, I don't know, I live in the country, I mean, we're just used to that, but people that live in the R1 and the R2, they don't, you know, they don't want to have long, you know, grass and critters and things like that, but, I mean, I don't know what else to say, except that it takes money, it takes people. We're doing the best we can with what we have for those two resources, time and money. And is it adequate? Of course it's not adequate. I mean, we have, I think it was in, I can't even remember the year, but it's maybe 2014 or 15, the house that's on the corner of Lower Linden, there was a fire there. No one's lived there all this time. You know, it doesn't look as bad as some of the others, but, you know, we have some on the Van Buren Road. I actually was just up there today because I had to go assign an address up there, and I'm driving by these places and saying, I see this, I haven't been up here for a while, but I see this is still a mess, you know. This one I see all the time, you know, it's a mess.
So it takes
The
a
one on
long time.
Sweden Street.
We had a code enforcement officer and during the time that Lower Linden was burned. And even though he was focused on those kinds of things, it still
And maybe
couldn't
nobody
happen.
was pushing them. I mean, we have a tendency to be reactive. It's, people call us and want us to handle things, and that's, you know, where we spend our time. And maybe no one cared that much about that one, I don't know.
So the position is advertised, we have just not had luck in
No. I mean, not anybody that has,
the qualifications.
you know, any kind of like experience in things. I mean, you're probably not going to get someone who's already certified in, you know,
Sure.
those 3 disciplines. But we're not asking someone to get all 10, you know, right away. We're just saying if you can get shoreland and land use and legal issues, those 3 tests out of the 10, you know, to get started. But we haven't had that. So.
Not even, you know, forgive me, you know, any promise, any potential, any,
Well, I wouldn't want to say
Well,
anything
and
derogatory.
right,
If
no,
someone's
no,
like
but I mean,
listening and
like-
saying, well, I applied
like,
for that job, and they're saying I have no promise, like, I
gosh,
don't,
you know,
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying,
it's
you
been
know.
a bit, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. But, I mean, the last time, it took a while to find
Did it?
somebody, too. I mean,
Yeah.
and then the time before that, they never really did find anybody. They just made Tony and I get certified and do stuff on top of the stuff we were already doing. And then in 2017, I said, you know, you really need a code officer because we can't just keep doing everything we're doing plus do planning board stuff. And
Tony is assistant?
yeah,
is
he's the deputy assessor and
okay.
he does deputy code enforcement, but he issues the building permits,
Okay.
you know, because he does have the certification in the main uniform building and energy code.
Okay.
The 10 test things. We were smart enough to stop before we did plumbing inspecting tests. At that point, I said, no, we're not doing that.
Okay.
That's, you know, a different animal altogether.
Certainly. Well,
So I don't know if that answers any of your questions, if it just gives you more questions, or...
Well, I think meanwhile, I'd still like to put some teeth in our ordinance.
You don't have your microphone on.
I have mine on. Oh, no, David does.
Huh. I got a big mouth anyway, sure they hear.
So I mean, I'll email MMA about, you know, these things to see, and
Well, they must know that there are other communities that have stronger rules. that-
Right. Well,
that allow them
Bangor, yeah.
to react to these kinds of
yeah, I
things.
think Bangor has tried to take a harder line.
Yeah.
They have, so code officers have like a listserv where people ask questions. And I can ask on there too. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I can see if someone has a, because there's no sense in spending a lot of time reinventing the wheel if there's another community,
Right.
particularly one close to our size, that has done something that
Absolutely.
has worked. Do you have anything to add to that?
Great, great summary. Good info.
So I don't know, do you want to move on to the next one, or anybody else have any questions about that?
Thank you. It's complicated.
It is, and I've been through it a few times, but I went until this time because it was something that the former CEO started on his last council meeting for us to go through dangerous buildings. So I've had to do it with other things. Before, I was able to do it when I didn't have quite so many things on my plate, And so it was a little bit easier to manage because, I know probably this board and certainly people at home are like, again, well, this is just your job, you should just do it. But we have a lot of competing priorities. And so when you're trying to make sure that you are completely doing a process the right way, and then, you have all these other things, kind of competing in there, it's sometimes difficult. Whereas before, I actually did a lot of that during our not so busy time of the year. Do it when it's not summer and you're trying to chase down a lot of things and get tax bills out and things. I started it in December, so we had a time that was not as busy.
Okay, thank you for that. And item B is LD 1706.
Right, and so this is something that's going to be coming back, but I just wanted to give you, because, and the reason why I say it's coming back, we will have to adopt some changes to our ordinance that has to do with density of residential units. So LD 2003 passed, and then there were a lot of questions about, how we were going to adopt it, enforce it, especially in rural communities where we are more heavily served by subsurface wastewater disposal systems, because it's not as easy as having, if you're in an urban area and you have access to municipal water, wastewater, and water supply, well, it's a little bit easier to say, okay, well, we can stick a little granny pod in the backyard because you can hook up to, municipal services. But when you're in the country, we have a plumbing code. It's a statewide plumbing code. It's not that we have any different code here than they have in, say, Cumberland County. And there's limits on, your system is designed by the number of bedrooms. So if you're going to be popping up a bunch of accessory structures that are residential, well, then you have to start counting bedrooms, and is this septic system that's in the ground, is that adequate for what's there? And so there were a lot of questions, a lot of wrangling, but in Augusta they decided, no, we're sticking by what has been passed. And really the only thing that they did, as far as I could tell, with 1706 was they delayed when municipalities had to start enforcing this. So for Caribou, January 1 is when we're supposed to be allowing people to build these accessory dwelling units. Now, before that happens, and when it was in the process, the DECD and MMA have agreed to help write an ordinance for municipalities, especially rural ones that are, again, served by subsurface wastewater disposal systems. We don't have that yet. Another component of LD 1706 was that the state needs to reimburse municipalities for the time that they spend on this, which is why we'll be talking about it every meeting, so we can charge the state as much as possible for working on this. And but it's going to have to be done, and honestly, again, it's one of those things that takes time, you know, to really think about everything. But I hope, again, that we're not reinventing the wheel. And MMA and DECD have said that they will start working on those ordinances, and they have had a couple of different information sessions, which I have printed out the slides from those here. One of them has more to do with the payment side of it, and I'm hoping if you're reading that some night when you can't sleep, maybe you can say, hey, I got a great idea how we can get more money out of this thing, because I'm always about revenue. And especially something like this, which is going to be, it's going to be very burdensome. I mean, we will have to draft the ordinance. You'll have to have a public hearing here. It will have to get kicked up to the council, which they're going to have another hearing. And I don't even like it, because, you know, we have lots of space for people to have a conforming lot, you know, and why are we going to let, you know, increase the density? And one of the things, if you go through this, and I think it was Mr. Hitchcock said, you know, how they just make it more difficult for you to, like, as an apartment owner. It's the same thing, like we've had people that want to take lots. Oh, I think I'll make a mobile home there on that lot. And so we have to explain to them, and because the state makes it very difficult, because they want people to be able to make mobile home parks, we're like, okay, I understand that you think on this lot exceeds 5 acres, so in theory you can have one there, but, and have, you know, I can't remember how many it is an acre, but say he's going to put 10 lots on this 5-acre parcel. You have to have room for roads. You have to have room for, again, like subsurface wastewater disposal systems. We have to have barriers. You know, there's things in there. But in the end, if someone decides they want to spend all that money, we have to let them put a mobile home park, you know, somewhere. And it's the same thing with this. It's saying, because the laws, like with mobile home parks, are written to discourage towns from using home rule, to limit those. And it's the same thing with this. You can see in there's different diagrams that, okay, so the municipality cannot say, okay, you have to have a minimum of 20,000 square feet for your first dwelling unit, and then 30,000 for the second, and 50,000 from the third. They're limiting home rule by saying, no, if it's 20 for the first one, it's got to be 20 for all, you know, all of them. So when you talk about home rule, I mean, they try to do so many different things for, you know, municipalities to not be able to kind of exercise their judgment, knowing their own community, what the community's needs are, and particularly rural communities, that there's plenty of land for people to have things that are conforming. But anyway, this will be coming back, and you'll hear a lot more about it. And if they get more information out there, I'll be sending it in an email just so that you have some updates to it. And then I'm going to keep track of the time that I spend copying that and sending those emails.
Okay, thank you. So item C under new business is looking ahead at projects in the pipeline.
Yep, so I'm assuming that you want to know kind of what's going to be coming at you in meetings. So when Tony and I, we try to talk a couple times a week about what people are talking about, because so we only have to do the work once, you know. So if I have somebody that I've talked to about something, then I can say to him, oh yeah, I just had somebody call about that. Here's all my information, so you can send it to them. And because we had like this dog boarding kennel, we had a couple of different inquiries about that. Mobile home parks, we've had some calls about that, so we kind of have our information together to send to people. Tony has also had a conversation with the owners of Spud Speedway, and they are doing a lot of work out there to make that more of an event center. They're going to have some short-term rentals out there. That's something that would need to come to the planning board. So when we have a full application, then that will be coming to you. A dog boarding kennel, that would need to come to the planning board. One of the people was also going to do dog grooming. Dog grooming just needs code enforcement approval, but because she's also talking about having a boarding kennel, that would require planning board approval. And the Caribou Police Station, we're finally getting some traction on that project. So the City Council approved a contract with Artifacts, Architects and Engineers. They've been working with us right along, and they were up on Monday and visited the site, and we were given kind of a list of things we needed to get ready for them. We've been working on that, and of course that will come to the planning board also once we have final design, which we don't have that yet. So, and then in July, of course, a couple of permits that were issued that just need to have code enforcement approval. The Aristic Band of Micmacs, they've been working on a community center project for quite a while, and they finally got all their financing together to begin working on that, and that permit was issued in July. And Caribou Cabins is adding another rental cabin. We have so much demand for people that are coming up for snowmobiling, for ATVs. We're very fortunate that people recognize that Caribou's, the hub for a lot of this recreational activity and spend a lot of money here. I know that several of our restaurants said they had the best winter ever last year. Despite some kind of wacky weather, they did well with everything. Of course, both of our hotels changed hands within the last year. Both of them doing significant remodel. Actually, all three. Russell's did too. I don't know that they're doing a lot there. I don't think that they needed to do a lot. But our two bigger ones, the Caribou Inn and the Crown Park Inn, they both have significant remodels going on there. And that's going to be good too. Our website, cariboumaine.org/visit, has a lot of information about that. And anyway, so we have a lot going on with that, and we're excited especially when we see these kind of commercial-oriented permits coming through. Anybody have any questions about any of that?
Right, we'll move on to item 6, old business. Schedule the 2024 comprehensive plan workshop for August. It is an enclosure, I think.
Yep, so there was, in July, so in June was supposed to be recreation, but there was an issue at the Wellness Center that they had to move things around, so we weren't able to meet in June. So in July, we had the meeting about the recreation section. So that leaves the economy section and public facilities and services. So one will be in August, one will be in September. Then we're going to plan for another community outreach event in October. So is there a preference for doing economy or public facilities and services in August, and the other one would be in September?
I have no preference, I don't know.
So it looks like you were on
Yeah,
the hook
I've
for
got-
economy,
Yeah, this month.
which is what we had
Right.
for August. Does that sound
So I would
okay?
be fine, leave it as that.
Okay.
and
So then we'll put public facilities and services. Mr. McElwain, will that work for you for September? Looks like you're on the hook with that one.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And I know that Karen has been Karen couldn't be here tonight, but she's been taking the notes and kind of synthesizing them into the format that they want to see that. And the city council has entered into a contract with NMDC for them to take the work of the planning board and Karen. And, some of the sections that maybe that we don't really have the capabilities of getting into the format for them, some of the data, they're going to get that ready for us too. But I know that Karen is so into this project, and she really, she's doing a lot of the work so that NMDC, they can spend more of their time that we're paying for on some of those things that maybe we're not able to do. So that's going to be, I think, a really big help. I think we're going to end up with a very good plan. I think we've had good turnout for the work sessions. People seem to be bringing a lot of great ideas, a lot of passion for the comprehensive plan. Just my observation. Any comments or anything?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's been fun. I've participated in some of these workshops, and I really enjoy it.
That's great. Any other questions from anybody about the comprehensive plan?
All right. So item 7, staff report.
So I have in your packet, we've had 2 regular city council meetings since this board last met. So I have the city manager's report from those 2 meetings, June 26th and July 24th. I also have just some newsy things that I thought would be of interest to the planning board that we might need to look at. I don't think this has come forward yet about having something in the ordinance about a de novo review of code enforcement decisions. So this might be something to, if you read through this and have some thoughts, maybe, get back to me and we can think about where to go from here about incorporating this into our practices and things.
How many appeals have we seen in the last decade or so?
Very few. They always just work them out. But here's the thing, though.
Solution looking for a problem.
But it's all fine until it's not fine, is the thing, and we have a lot of new people moving in, and we have new people that came from other places that maybe don't always like the way we do things here.
Right.
I've had a week of struggling with that, with people that really just want to do things the way they did them other places and don't recognize that this is a different place and maybe things are different. They don't need to tell me that with foul language, but.
Colorful language.
Yes, colorful language. Anyway, this legislative update, there was a lot of good things in here. Some of them have to do with code enforcement, some of them don't, but I didn't want to try to pick out which slides had to do with planning board, but there's something in there about the 1706 and also the foreclosure. That's been kind of in the news. It's not really something for the planning board, but it's kind of planning board adjacent in that if we have a lot of these foreclosures and, if the city decides, well, we're just going to waive foreclosure because if we can't take this building and tear it down and charge it to the taxes, then we're just going to waive foreclosure. Well, then it creates more blight, and then we have more problems like we've been talking about tonight with what do we do with these blighted properties. So I of course, maybe I'm a problem looking for, a solution looking for a problem. Because I look at these things and I think some of the reason why we like getting some of these foreclosed properties is so we can tear them down. But when we tear them down, we want to add the cost to tear it down to what we have for bids. But the way this is written, we can only collect the tax. So if we have expenses, we're not, all it takes is somebody with a smart lawyer saying, well, no, I lost that property, thanks for cleaning it up, thanks for selling it, and I want my money now, and I don't know how far they are going to go with, enforcing that, if they're going to try to clean it up a little bit, or at least have a provision in there that any expenses that have been incurred by the municipality can also be collected, not just the tax, that if we have to go in and secure a property, because we have that too. There's a lot of times these tax-acquired properties, we, at a minimum, have to placard them and put a new lock on there, Anyway, the housing thing is in here too. Anyway, there's all kinds of interesting things happening in Augusta. I'm always surprised when I get this list of the bills that have been signed. And then, last but not least, my favorite subject, which is brownfields. So, of course, I talked about it at our last meeting because we had just found out at the last meeting that we were selected from 3 projects in the country. I mean, I don't know how many of them applied, but there's 2,500 people going to this conference. I don't know how many of them applied for the Perfect Pitch competition, but we are doing a presentation about our project. It has to be between 8 and 10 minutes, which is very short, especially when you're a person who tends to be very verbose like myself. And we have to talk about our project, what our challenges are, what our vision is, kind of the history of the project.
Does
So,
Karen get a speaking part as well?
yes, yeah.
Oh, well,
No, but we have a script, and we have been practicing. We actually,
I'm more worried about Karen than me.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, we have it down, and we've worked with Yukon Tabs. So it's in Detroit. So that's why they're calling it Perfect Pitch. Like last year, it was in Oklahoma City, so it was called Redevelopment Roundup. So I decided, maybe I'm like pandering to the judges, but I'm doing a Motown theme. So our slides and how it's organized is based on these different Motown songs. And there's no singing involved, though, I would like to say, because I'm not a singer. But we just kind of have like that theme. And you've kind of got the idea of like our hit list. And it's funny because when they announced, the people that were coming, and it has a lot of this theming in it too, like the music theming. So I'm hoping that helps us with the judges, that we're carrying on with that theme also. So it was kind of fun putting the slideshow together, because I've got some slides of like we have a picture of people working on the dam, like when it was, like, I guess when it's being built in 1889. There's people out there in the river, and they've got these it's like an old-timey picture, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to like use that. I've got some from the 50s when they were building the steam and diesel plants, and there's a picture from like 1910, which I didn't use because you can't really see the power plant site as well, but it's kind of neat because it's got the forest and the train tracks and like the
So there's a competition for funding?
yes, yeah, for
So what did we already get awarded? Or
we got awarded the grant to do the work. So but the thing is, they only do what they have to do to remediate the problem. So what our pitch is that the judges all have like redevelopment companies, and our pitch is that what we want from them is a shovel-ready plan for a park on that site, so that when the buildings are all gone, we have a plan that can go out for bid. Because having a plan, that's like $50,000-$60,000, like to have someone come in
Sure.
and figure all that out, so that's what we're asking for. Like, you had to go in with a specific ask, that's our ask, is for a shovel-ready plan for a park.
And the money would come from the government?
No, it would come from these company,
Oh.
this development companies that they have there, and through the EPA TAB program. So the EPA funds, like, we're in Yukon's district, we're in Region 1. And so there are 10, I think, districts, and some of them are through colleges. ICMA has an area. There's a Center for Creative Land Recycling. They're kind of the TAB is technical assistance to brownfield communities. And so as part of their funding, they're funding some of the prize money, but the idea is to get the people so excited about their project, your project, that they want to use their skills as, you know, redevelopers to design you a park. That's what our plan is. Like, one of the others is from West Virginia. What they're asking for is, and it's a smaller town than ours, they have an old coal site, and they want help in getting a hotel to locate there. Now, to me, like, I don't know how they are going to help with that. I mean, they might be able to help them to make contacts with people, but it's not something, like, they're not going to build a hotel
Right.
there, you know?
So how stiff is this competition?
There's three. There's one that's in Colorado, and it is like a recreation building that has a lot of contaminated soil. So the city abandoned pretty much the structure and built a new rec center, but they can't really redevelop the site until they, you know, it has a building on there. But I guess it sounds like from reading the material that the soils is what, and I think that they're trying to redevelop it for some kind of recreation. And then there's only three of us, and there's our project, and then this one in West Virginia, which is also on a river, and it was a coal, I guess there were some coal assets there, and they've got those, you know, they want to make it into kind of a resort recreation area for tourism. So they want help trying to get a hotel to locate there.
Are there financial limits to what they might award?
I don't know. I mean, they have, like, they're, like, in the information, it talks about like $20,000 of assistance, but if they really are excited about your project, I think, you know, they would probably do more than that, you know. It's up to them. I mean, our TAB people said, well, it's kind of up to them. If they decide that your project is something that they have the skill set and the interest in, because you really sold them on their project. I mean, I feel like Caribou always has a very interesting story. I mean, we have a very iconic name. In the presentation, I talk a lot about, you know, our lumber and potato industries, and how the base, you know, they built the base, we increased capacity, and then they closed the base. And, you know, that ushered in an era of decline. But the people of Caribou are so resilient. They just went to other things, like this tourism, and how our outdoor recreation economy has really been booming for the last 10 years. And how this particular property, it's accessible to walk. So if you are off of South Main, there's actually a path that goes underneath Route 1, so you can access it there. You can access it with an ATV. And we actually took when the folks from Yukon came to visit, which was in early July, we took them on an ATV ride, and we took them over on the trail that is on the east side of the river, so they can see what it looks like from there. We took them down on the ATVs. We took them on the trail that goes under Route 1, so they can see, like, this is a great location. You could take a snowmobile down there, but you can't take it on the trail that the ATV goes on because it's too steep, I guess, as a person who doesn't ride either one of those. But, you know, is that something that, if the right person, a lot of this too, though, is getting our message out so that people from there's all kinds of EPA people there, and you know that they are ones that are deciding on who gets the grants. So if these people hear Karen and I talk with so much passion about our community and the project and getting this cleaned up down there, then when our next application comes, they'll say, oh yeah, Caribou, I remember those people were at the conference.
Right.
Those are hype girls. They're really big on their community, so.
Well, they may remember,
Approved.
they may remember the Motown.
Yes,
which is-
exactly,
which is
our
yeah.
good things here.
Yeah,
and-
something to-
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to dry run that thing, I'd love to hear it.
Oh, really? I might actually on Saturday. I told Dana, I said, because Karen and I have been practicing in here, and because it's easy, you have more of the feel of how it's set up, and having, have the slides, have your thing, it's not that long. I mean, I think it's about 9 minutes, 40 seconds, yeah. Yeah. I'll text you. Oh, you're going out of town Saturday. If I do it tomorrow, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah,
That's
we're
an
excited.
Incredible initiative. And
Mhm.
I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Yeah.
Anything else? Hearing none, I would entertain item 8, which is adjournment.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second it.
Motion by Dave, second by Eric to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor, Justin?
Yes.
I will vote yes.
Yes.
James?
Yes.
David and Eric?
Yes.
All in the affirmative, and thank you, and we are now adjourned at 7:14.
Okay.
Thank
Can
you.
you turn off your microphones?